You're listening to the Monocle Daily, first broadcast on the 12th of June, 2026 on Monocle Radio.
Would you buy shares in a rocket ship from Elon Musk? The art world mourns the passing of someone who was that rare combination of influential and popular. And how much attention have you been paying to the week? I'm Andrew Muller. The Monocle Daily starts now. Hello and welcome to the Monocle Daily, coming to you from Studio 1 here at Midori House in London. I'm Andrew Muller. It's Friday, so we'll have news and views from the Monocle staff, our weekly daily quiz and more. Stay tuned, all that and more coming up right here on the Monocle Daily. This is the Monocle Daily. I'm Andrew Muller, and we will start in New York City, specifically the Nasdaq Stock Exchange, where Earth's richest individual, Elon Musk, has taken a break from attempting to incite a race war in the United Kingdom to oversee the initial public offering of his spaceflight concern, SpaceX. SpaceX has been floated at a valuation of $1.77 trillion US. Should the stock price tick up just slightly, it stands to make Musk personally a trillionaire, i.e. worth roughly $1,000 billion, or near enough to the GDP of Switzerland, one of the world's 20 largest national economies. I'm joined with more on this by Susanna Streeter, Chief Investment Strategist at Wealth Club. Susanna, first of all, this is the biggest, we are repeatedly told, IPO in stock exchange history. Does it really register, though, in the grand scheme of the American economy?
Well, of course, if you look at what happens on the stock market, it is kind of divorced from what happens on Main Street in America. And that has been some of the criticism, really, about how you've seen the stock market reach record highs, certainly recently, while actually ordinary Americans have been struggling. But what you're seeing is the tech giants, and now SpaceX certainly is one of them, are reaching stratospheric levels, while those companies more linked to the so-called real economy haven't been doing quite so well.
SpaceX has, as we speak now, been trading for a few hours. Have we learnt anything yet about how valuable it actually is?
Yes, well, what you've seen is a surge of enthusiasm from retail investors in particular. So you've got shares surging way above the offer price of $135. Initially starting at $150 and then soaring above that as well. So there's a lot of enthusiasm, certainly for SpaceX right now. And of course, it's been fueled by the hype. So we heard Elon Musk talking before we had the launch on the stock market, and he was talking about how he wanted to take people to the moon, to Mars and beyond. And I think certainly some of the rhetoric we're hearing around SpaceX really has fueled this kind of frenzy of share buying.
How much of the valuation of SpaceX is contingent on any of those things actually happening? Or are people, do we think, happy to buy into it on the assumption that other people will be just as happy to buy into it at a higher price a bit further down the track?
Well, what you're seeing, I think, is that people have got a fear of missing out. They don't want to get left behind by what they consider to be a company which has great potential. However, of course, others really do see SpaceX right now as being overvalued, and there are a lot of risks still, particularly in the space domain, risks that haven't really been factored in when it comes to defense, for example, and potential attacks on satellite systems going forward in the years to come. And also the regulation for space still hasn't been sorted. And as well, we've got SpaceX wrapping up Musk's AI ventures within it as well. And there's an awful lot being spent on trying to keep up with the other AI giants. So quite a lot of risk, but simply the enthusiasm right now is very hot, and investors do just want to seem to catch a ride on Elon Musk's rocket ship right now.
I mean, there is always, by definition, a risk to investors, but is there any risk here for Elon Musk? Obviously, when you put any amount of what you control up for sale, you give away an amount of that control.
Well, he is not actually going to be giving away much control. He's going to be retaining the main voting rights. And actually, investors are really taking a punt and not going to have as many voting rights as they would if they bought into another stock. So he still really does want to keep control of the direction of SpaceX going forward. And that is the way that this deal has been structured.
And just finally, as you were saying, so much of this is driven by the hype and attention that Elon Musk is able to generate. But is there any sense in which he is perceived, or should be perceived perhaps, by investors as a risk? His behaviour is very frequently, if we put it charitably, unorthodox, or have people priced that and some of his political views in?
No, I don't think that they have priced his political views or some of his erratic behaviour in, given the eye-watering valuation that we're seeing right now. And actually, as you say, this has become evident. For example, his other ventures, Tesla, share price has suffered in the past, certainly when he took over the Doge department under the Trump administration. Real concerns that he was taking his eye off the ball of Tesla, which has struggled more in recent years. And there is the risk that again could perhaps knock SpaceX's trajectory in the future. Right now, there's a lot of enthusiasm, but we've really got to let the dust settle. Some of this enthusiasm is very likely to wear off, and I expect that we are going to see volatility ahead for SpaceX.
Susanna Streeter, Chief Investment Strategist at Wealth Club, thank you for joining us. This is The Daily. You're listening to The Daily. I'm Andrew Muller, and it is Friday, and so, as has rapidly become traditional, if not inevitable, I am joined by my fellow contributing editor, Rob Bound, for what we are calling, is it the Daily Weekly Quiz or the Weekly Daily Quiz?
Either, any combination of whichever you wish, Andrew.
Yeah, I don't really think it matters.
Sadly, though, the weekly in that sentence has been my performance. I think it's something like 15-1 to you. I hope this isn't like sort of, Pete Sampras playing his dog at tennis. I hope that there's still some pleasure in this.
I'd like to think Pete Sampras did that at least once.
Yeah.
He seems like the sort. To familiarise newcomers with the format, what happens is we each ask each other 3 multiple choice questions in turn, pertaining at some level to the week's news. And at the end of it, I win.
That appears to be broadly the pattern that's emerged.
That's pretty much how it goes. We have not tossed a coin or anything like that. Do you want to go first? I can go first. I don't mind. I mean,
I'd like to do before any coin tossing is the theme tune playing.
Oh yeah,
you want to hear the theme tune?
Of course, we want to hear the theme tune.
Now you're in the mood.
Okay, now we're all in the mood.
Now you don't care what's tossed. You're going to be just happy.
I mean, we could think of this, appropriately in the beginning week of a World Cup as akin to a penalty shootout, and there is a conventional wisdom that there's a certain advantage to taking your shot first. So I don't mind asking the question first, so you can take your shot first. How does that sound?
Okay, that sounds perfect.
You have the opportunity to establish an early lead and put the pressure on. So my question to you, Rob, is this. Peru voted in a presidential election runoff at the weekend, hoping to end an astonishing run of gutter balls where choosing their heads of state is concerned. Which of the following is not a genuine ending to a 21st century Peruvian presidency and or president? Is it A, attempted to dissolve parliament and rule by decree before trying to hide in the Mexican embassy in Lima, but nevertheless eventually sentenced to 11 years for rebellion? Is it B, resigned by fax from Japan before trying to run for Japanese parliament from Chile before being sentenced to 25 years for crimes against humanity? Is it C, shot himself as police attempted to arrest him on corruption charges? Is it D, resigned after throwing a soup tureen at the House Speaker amid an argument about Mario Vargas Llosa's conversation in the cathedral during a state banquet for King Harold V of Norway? Which of those is not the genuine ending to a 21st century Peruvian presidency and or president?
That is a joyous smorgasbord of potential options. And D is hilarious for the specific mention of a literary work in there, an argument therein over which I think sounds absolutely stunning. I think it's possibly too good to be true. I think that kind of phoning in your presidency from Japan or trying to do a coup from Japan, the Fujimoris must have some Japanese ancestry. I can imagine that is a genuine one. I'm going with option C.
You're saying C is not the genuine one?
That's not the genuine one, where he shot himself evading arrest.
He actually did shoot himself evading arrest. You are wrong.
It's the Vargas Llosa one, isn't it?
That is the one that never actually happened. It was a trick question. King Harold V has never been to Peru. Just to bring our listeners up to speed, I am not making any of this up, and that really isn't the half of it. If I've counted this right, currently 4 former presidents of Peru are in prison. Alberto Fujimori was for a lengthy period before he died in 2024. He is the one who resigned by fax and then tried to run for Japanese parliament.
That's the kind of thing Phil Collins would do.
Well, exactly. Incredibly, though, in the current presidential runoff, his daughter Keiko may have won the election at her 4th attempt. But as of this recording, she is 651 votes ahead out of more than 18 million cast. Mario Vargas Llosa, who I did mention, did in fact run for president in 1990, but lost to Alberto Fujimori.
I was a fool to not go with my instinct.
You were
the delicacies that you offered there.
Yeah.
In terms of the true and the false, were almost too rich to take part in one meal.
Okay. So your first attempt, Rob, has hit the crossbar.
It has indeed. Well, all my questions, Andrew, are World Cup themed.
Excellent.
Started yesterday. So I hope you don't mind, but I know that you like to lean into some sport. See if you can save these.
Go on.
Number 1. Co-hosts Canada play Bosnia-Herzegovina tonight, and they obviously have a very recognisable flag of the red maple leaf on a white background. I'm also not asking you something about Bosnia-Herzegovina because I know you'll get it in a flash. Other than Canada, how many other of this year's World Cup teams' flags share a solely red and white colour scheme?
Oof.
A, 4, B, 5, C, 6 or D, 7? We'll get to the answers, and I think you might want to name them. There are some quite obvious ones. Red and white.
Canada and Japan are quite obvious.
Outside of Canada, how many?
So we're not counting Canada.
Not counting Canada.
So Japan.
Yep.
Did Poland qualify? Okay, so not Poland. Who else is there? Switzerland.
Yep.
Malta didn't qualify. Indonesia didn't qualify. This could take me some time.
Somewhere quite close to home.
Somewhere quite close to home. I've got no idea. I mean, I'm going to take a wild guess at this because otherwise we could be here all day.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 4.
I thought Flags and Muller would be.
Yeah, no, I would probably get there eventually, but it would take me a while.
Also,
what is the actual answer?
The answer is 7, technically, although it could be 6, because Qatar has a sort of burgundy, the sort
Qatar's
of serrated burgundy.
Qatar's not red and white, not by any stretch of the imagination.
It's burgundy, isn't it? I suppose
it's burgundy.
Anyway, so 6 was what I was going to take. They are Austria, England, Japan, Switzerland, Tunisia, Turkey, and Qatar as a technicality.
Oof. Okay.
Oof.
Well, that was poor on my part.
It's a tough question in which to work it out.
It's a tough question. I mean, given 5 or 10 minutes, I could probably have got there, but I think I am mindful of the patience of our listeners. Okay. Well, we're 0-0 after 2 attempts. So my second question to you, Rob, and none of mine are World Cup themed, but my second question to you is: what specific behaviour of US President Donald Trump have at least 20,000 people in Japan signed a petition complaining about? Is it A, disparaging sushi? Is it B, making a Pearl Harbor joke in front of Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi? Is it C, depicting himself as manga characters in AI slop posts on social media? Or is it D, humming Enola Gay by orchestral manoeuvres in the dark during a speech by the Japanese ambassador? Which of specific behaviour of US President Donald Trump has attracted the signatures of 20,000 righteously indignant Japanese people to a petition?
Well, I know that he made that joke when he was with the Japanese Prime Minister, or he mentioned Pearl Harbor.
He did.
That did go down like a lead balloon, if not something heavier, more dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
I think, therefore, so I'm going with D as well. I'm going to discount D on the same. Humming the Enola Gay.
Donald Trump doesn't strike you as an OMD fan?
No, exactly. Yes, that too. I think those.
I mean,
those are linked and beautiful, but
he does have proclivities to a certain sort of disco.
He does indeed.
It's fair to say
it does. I think it's less that kind of. The brainiac end of disco.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm trying to read something from your face.
I'm trying to sell this one, clearly.
I'm going with something as simple as disparaging sushi.
You out-clevered yourself again, Rob. It is, in fact, using manga in official White House posts on X, the social media platform once vaguely useful as Twitter.
Yeah.
Most recently, this past weekend, he posted an image of himself as Naruto Uzumaki, who is an orange-hued cartoon with wild blonde hair who somehow becomes a great leader. Hard to imagine, what Donald Trump sees in him, etc. But no, this has caused a certain amount of indignation among the anime and manga fans of Japan, or at least 20,000 of them who wish he'd stop.
Yeah, it's beautifully asked, beautifully teed up. I shanked it into the long grass on the right-hand side. Question 2 for you, Andrew, and this again is World Cup themed. Tomorrow, Saturday, Qatar play Switzerland. There's a lot of Swiss interest in the World Cup.
I'm looking forward to that one, I can tell you. That'll be a barn burner.
Well, here you go. Let's see. Let's see on whose side you might be. There's obviously been a lot of Swiss interest in the World Cup. They hosted it in 1954. FIFA's headquarters are in Zurich, and former and current presidents of the organisation are Swiss. As an illustration of the sort of big, benign, uniform world building that FIFA does, it helps to know where its bosses come from. Sepp Blatter comes from a place called Visp in the Valais canton. Gianni Infantino, the current president, hails from Brig in the same canton. By the way, that canton of Valais is over 522,000 square hectares in acreage, by the way, well, in size. So the
good to know. That'll come in handy.
Well, it might do.
Okay.
So the two FIFA head honchos' hometowns are close, but how close? How close were Sepp Blatter and Gianni Infantino born? A, 6 miles, B, 26 miles, C, 56 miles, or D, 86 miles? Considering this is the gene pool from which they're choosing FIFA presidents.
I am being asked to guess the distance between two places in Switzerland I've never heard of in my goddamn life, in a canton that I could probably not point to on a map. I'm going to go with the sort of men of destiny thing, akin to John Adams and Thomas Jefferson dying on the same day. And I'm going to say 6 miles.
Of course you are. It's exactly. This is the fibre. This is the fabric from which the fibre of FIFA is made, Andrew.
The fabric of the fibre of FIFA. Into the top corner there.
Yeah.
So pressure now on you,
Beautifully
Rob.
done.
Pressure now on you.
Okay.
I have a lead, and this is your third and final question. It is not World Cup themed. Which contemporary French cultural phenomenon has become an election issue, condemned by left-wing parties as a sinister, surreptitious undertaking to promote the far right? Is it A, immense organised banquets at which people wear berets? Is it B, competitive giant onion growing? Is it C, accordion marathons? Or is it D, snail racing? Which of these cultural endeavours is being fretted about by left-wing French parties as a sinister, surreptitious undertaking to promote the far right? Banquets, onions, accordions or snails?
Well, I think we had accordions last week, and I know you just love...
Every week is accordion week.
Every week is accordion week in Andrew Miller's world. I'm going to discount the accordion because I don't think you're going to put in another red hanging. Or rather... Oh, God. I'm glad we're not playing poker. I wonder how any of these can be construed to be far-right symbolism, but...
You are underestimating the French far left, Rob.
Yes, I suppose I am. Snail racing, I think the French don't lean into the comedy of their own escargot-ness. I think the beret wearing could be it, and the other so it's the banquets.
Escargot is, of course, what they say at the start of a snail race.
I'm going for the banquets and the berets.
It is large-scale banquets organised by an outfit called Le Canon Francais. You get 4 courses and all the wine you can drink for €81. You do, unfortunately, have to, in exchange for this, spend quite a lot of time in a big warehouse full of long benches and people wearing berets and braces. It is partially funded by a conservative tycoon called Pierre-Edouard Sterrin, but left-wing parties are concerned that it is a surreptitious promotion of nationalism. It may well be. I haven't been to one and have no plans so to do.
I've got a pretty good disguise for that because I favour a beret. I have at least 2.
You would fit right in. Do you own a pair of braces? They're apparently a thing.
No, thank God, no braces.
What about a hoopy shirt?
I think they were sort of Monocle standard issue for a time.
They kind of were. I mean, you would fit right in. Well, this means, Rob, incredibly, it is 1-1 pressure back on me.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to disappoint, but I have another multiple choice question, which is workoutable.
Okay.
On Sunday, Germany played Curaçao in the opening match in Group E. How many members of the Curaçao squad were not born in the Netherlands? I mean, were born in Curaçao? A, none. B, 1. C, 2, or D, 3? How many members of the Curaçao squad were born in Curaçao?
I would have gone, obviously, with not many, because Curaçao, though I'm sure a delightful spot, though I have not visited, is not renowned as a footballing hotbed. Although, in fairness, they did kind of cruise through the CONCACAF qualifications to get there. I mean, I do not fancy their chances against Germany, but they're not total mugs, is my point. But yes, as you're...
A lot of them born, brought up, schooled, football schooled and otherwise, in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands.
See, I'm torn between just saying none, which is the obvious, slightly comedy answer, and just maybe going for the movie matinee idea that they have one local-born hometown hero who, after 90 minutes of absolutely excruciating, scoreless attrition against Germany, will somehow bundle in the winner off his head.
Homegrown hero.
Yeah, I'm going to say 1.
Yeah, it's turned into this has essentially turned into an exercise in clairvoyance, hasn't it?
It has. Outstanding. I won again.
Do you want to? So this,
I'm the Curaçao of these quiz.
You are. Well, you're actually the Tahith Chong, who was born and raised in Willemstad in Curaçao. He came through the Man United graduate scheme, the Feyenoord graduate scheme, and he now plays for Sheffield United. Do you want to hear a bit of Curaçao's World Cup song?
Who doesn't?
Fear no doubt, we stand as one. Our journey's just begun. Nostra lucha, we will rise. Sammen sterkast, al cielo we fly. One dream, one team.
I am a lot less sympathetic to Curaçao than I was 15 seconds ago. That is terrible.
Well, I'd like to let listeners into a secret, which is that we're not doing a 2-man conga around the studio desk to that.
No, that is dreadful. But I think we can earnestly wish, on behalf of Monocle Radio, Curaçao all the very, very best.
Indeed.
And obviously, you speaking as an Englishman will cheer on anybody against Germany. I mean, anybody playing Germany becomes your second favourite team.
Absolutely.
Right?
Come on, you Tahith Chong and your other 10 friends.
Exactly. And Rob, I can only conclude by saying yet again, better luck next week. You're listening to The Daily on Monocle Radio, and we cross now to Copenhagen, where Nic Monisse and Grace Charlton are standing by to tell us about their time at 3 Days of Design, Denmark's premier annual design festival.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for letting us speak on your show.
I think this is my favourite part, when Andrew just does the cross and his microphone gets turned off. This because we kind of just get to run free. Grace Charlton, tell me, 3 Days of Design. The other thing is, I feel like I could do a better job of hosting the daily. So this is the ideal setup for me right now. I'm almost going to interview you. Tell me about 3 Days of Design. What have some of the highlights been for you, or what have you observed? Some trends.
There's been a lot going on. 3 days, it really should be longer than that. It should be at least 5. I've noticed a few trends, mostly in terms of the aesthetics. Maybe I'll start there because I know Andrew loves talking stuff like chairs and, furniture.
He loves furniture. This is his favourite thing.
And he would already know this, but a few years ago, Danish design was very about like upbeat pastels and sort of more like cutesy design, very wooden. And this year is just fully monochromatic, lots of metal finishes, lots of like steel and aluminium, quite seductive, dare I say. And a lot of like being able to see how pieces are assembled, like sort of very industrial in terms of their aesthetics. What have you noticed, Nic Monisse?
I think a similar theme. I think the exposed hardware is kind of seeing screws, seeing like the way pieces have been assembled seems to be a thing. I think that's probably tied in with, being designed for disassembly, this idea of people trying to lean into circular economies. But I agree with you about the color palette. I noticed a lot more kind of black this year as well, just in terms of new releases. Everyone seemed to be doing like maybe a black chair and a blonde chair. And I think that didn't necessarily mean everything was matte either. I saw a lot of lacquer too, which I think has been more of a thing. And if you look across the industry more broadly, I feel like I've seen lots of kind of lacquer showcases, how a lacquer practitioner's working. Can we save lacquer? So I don't know if that's something that's emerging too. But we've talked before about kind of metal being everywhere. Have you noticed that? Is it still a steel and aluminium world?
I was actually really intrigued coming into this edition of 3 Days of Design to see whether or not the metal would still be everywhere, but it clearly is. Like nothing has come to replace it, which is interesting. Maybe I was even thinking about this. Maybe in like 70 years will people be looking back at this decade as like the metal decade, sort of in the way that we've been looking back at the mid-century for so long as like the sort of, teak and oak decade. But actually, speaking of the mid-century, I feel like we've kind of finally maybe moved on from it. There's been less of a conversation about all the Danish greats like Arne Jacobsen and Henning Koppel and all of that. But the notable exception is obviously Werner Panton, who is celebrating 100 years of being born. He's not alive anymore.
No, he's not.
It's the centenary of his birth, so there's a big focus on his pieces, especially at An Tradition, who reissue his very famous flower pot lamp, which I think Andrew Muller would love, actually.
I think that would be perfect in Andrew Muller's house. Actually, I do want to ask you what you would pick for him, but before that, I think An Tradition's also a nice kind of showcase to talk about. This is a relatively young Danish brand, but I think they had one of my favourite showcases of kind of the design heavy hitters, the household brand names, because they were really focused on kind of building an entire world, an entire universe. It wasn't just the presentation of the singular presentation of their furniture, but the fact that they would work with their art gallery, or they do work with an art gallery and bring in art. They mix in antique and vintage pieces that they find. And the whole ambition was to, I guess, talk about design as more than just a chair or a table, but really about kind of designing an atmosphere. I mean, I feel like this was a trend that ran through the week, no?
For sure, and I think the Danes are better than the Italians at sort of throwing in pieces they find on eBay or like at an auction house and blending it a little bit more. Italians usually go for full novelty. I mean, I want to ask you, Nic, what piece of furniture would you pick for Andrew Muller?
I'm picturing, so we went to a really, really nice exhibition at the French embassy here just off the King's Square in the heart of Copenhagen, and there was a wonderful kind of winged chair. It was mid-century, but I mean it's important to honour the time period that Andrew was born in. So I think something like that, maybe for him, it's kind of a classic design. It's a little bit sober. He likes to wear a lot of colourful shirts, so maybe his furniture needs to be a bit more restrained to balance that out. I don't know how you feel.
No, I think he's an armchair philosopher in many ways. So I could just picture him in that armchair, reading philosophy books, or a biography of like some war hero.
And it would be an obscure war hero too, or maybe PJ O'Rourke. I know he's a big fan of him. Yeah. What about you? What if you were to buy something? What would you be looking for?
Well, I'm quite patriotic, so I would have to go to Latitude, which is this brand new Australian showcase that has come to Copenhagen this year, and I honestly thought it was outstanding. There were these chairs by this Melbourne-based designer / artist called Jessie French that looked like ostrich leather, but it was sort of recycled materials and bio-organic like pieces that she sort of cooks in her kitchen and lays out on trays and makes. So I think I would have to select that.
Yeah, I think that's quite wonderful. She makes it's kind of this amazing leathery material, but I almost don't want to call it that. And I think that's also speaking to this bigger theme of design for disassembly and circular economies. It's like, how do we also make, I guess, materials that speak to that are actually beautiful and that you would want to touch and use. And the fact that you've picked that as something to have in your house is really nice. Be honest with me, you fancy yourself as a bit of a DJ?
I've got great taste in music. I'm not ashamed to say that. Yeah, I know where you're going with this. Every single DJ in Copenhagen, I reckon, has spent at least 10 minutes on the decks this week. Every event we go to, every showcase, it doesn't matter what time of the day it is, there's someone spinning some vinyls in the corner. I feel like music has been a really big focus of 3 Days of Design this year. Fritz Hansen partnered with a Japanese company called Technics to release this like amazing turntable in this really moody burgundy. And yeah, there's a good soundtrack this year. I
like the fact, I think that also speaks to this idea of creating a whole atmosphere, but I like the fact that you said it doesn't matter what time of the day, because I feel like the Danes have got very particular about their cocktail hour. It seems to be between 4 and 6, which is just kind of bizarre for me, no?
Yeah, definitely. Also, like if you try and go to a restaurant at 1:45, the kitchen is closed.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like the early dinner times, I heard someone actually saying that they were really pushing it by organizing dinner at 8 p.m. Like the Danes really do like to eat early. So yeah, we've actually missed out on quite a few cocktail parties this week because we have to work until 6 p.m.
We're trying to look at Muller making us do this right now. I mean, this is outrageous. I guess I also want to ask, do you think, I mean, this is an event that seems to be growing more and more in popularity. Is 3 Days of Design getting too big? Is it getting overwhelming for you? Are there too many brands here?
Maybe. But I feel like actually the anxiety around this question has sort of turned into resolve. Like last year, everyone was talking about how there were too many people, too many brands, that they don't want to become Milan. This year, I haven't really heard that conversation as much. It's just a bit more like, well, we're, cementing our status as the second design destination in Europe, and there's sort of more of a confidence. But I will say that Copenhagen is not necessarily built to welcome that many people at once, and like every hotel room in the city seems to have been booked out for months.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy too. I will also add, I feel like there's been also a confidence in the presentation this year that I maybe haven't seen previously, and I think that's also speaking to this idea of creating a whole atmosphere. It seems that people are really trying to curate an experience rather than just, I guess, throw new products out there. I guess just finally, I want to ask you, thoughts on the theme, make this moment matter. Do you feel like we've made this moment matter?
I feel like it's quite an ominous theme for the organisers to choose and, make this moment matter. It's very, it's an imperative, right? And I feel like it also speaks to the fact that maybe the Copenhagen's at this crossroad of, we used to be quite a small niche, informal Danish design showcase, and now we're like fully international, and all this press and the buyers are flying into Copenhagen, and they want to make sure. So the organizers said that by this make this moment matter theme, they meant that everything needs to have like a reason for existing. They don't want to like lose track of their original intent, which is to, showcase high quality design with purpose. Nick, isn't that something we can get behind?
I think that's something we can get behind. I think that's something to aspire to, which is maybe a nice time to throw it back to you in the studio at Midori House, Andrew Muller.
Thank you, Nick and Grace in Copenhagen. And we turn now to our sister publication, Konfekt, as the team has picked the brains of artists, designers and chefs alike to compile a handbook on how best to curate a meal and experience for your guests. Here are Konfekt editor Sophie Grove and deputy editor Chiara Ramella with a taste of The Guide to Generous Hosting, which hits bookshelves later this summer.
Chiara, we've just sent the book of Generous Hosting to press. It's been a while in the oven, in fact, cooking away. We've been running, so many meetings, so many incredible sort of like this review process was extensive. It's our first book for Konfekt. How are you feeling about everything?
Well, I am very proud, of course. I think the result is beautiful, but mostly I was thinking about it, and to some, the topic of hosting might feel, I don't want to say reductive, but certainly limited or niche, you might think. But actually, I think the book that we've created encompasses so much more than really putting some food on a table for guests. It's an exploration of this topic which veers into so many other facets of the human experience, really. It feels like quite a philosophical topic when you think about it, particularly in this day and age when I think the way that we behave with others, the way that we behave in our homes has got so much to do with our values and where we feel like we belong in the world. So yes, maybe we've started with menus and table settings, but I think we've ended up in a place that feels like it has a lot of meaning and that speaks to the kind of people that the pages of Konfekt are normally filled with, creatives who have practices that go beyond aesthetics but really have something to say and some light to shed on the world. I guess, what are some of the bits of it that you've enjoyed the most making?
Well, it was wonderful to go through the archives of Konfekt and pluck some of the most beautiful stories that are kind of entertaining pieces that open the book, this kind of really intuitive, warm hosting that isn't about haute cuisine, but is about just being expressive, being creative. It's aesthetics and creating beauty and wonder in the moment of hosting, nurturing people. So we have this wonderful cast of people that open the book. You know, we've got Sissel Tules, who's, you know, a Norwegian scent artist in Berlin, just kicking open her oven and making monkfish, and she's just wacky and amazing. And then there are more kind of like studied, just kind of philosophical reflections. Setsuko Dekoloskaya, who is an artist in Switzerland in her chalet, serving matcha tea very, very artfully. She's reflecting on, you know, her mother. She's reflecting on the person that, you know, crafted and fixed the beautiful vessel that she presents to you during the tea ceremony. And it's all about the ghosts of the house and how she sort of is nurtured by them and inspired by them. So you feel like it's very biographical. And then we just zip over to something that's completely kind of fun and like kind of witty reflections on etiquette or beautiful things that just gadgets for the table and tools for the table, which are much more kind of light-hearted, but equally in a way just as valid.
I think so. I mean, I am hugely passionate about food, but I don't host very often. So approaching this book, I kind of approached it with the tentativeness of somebody who very much frequently guests rather than hosts. There are some tips for guesting as well in the book, I should say. But I think what's really great about the book is that it's instructional in the sense that there is some usefulness to the pages. There will be menus that you can follow kind of and feel like you're in the good hands of somebody who's done this plenty of times before. And as you say, there's beautiful gadgets and beautiful things to get inspired by. But I think what really stuck with me the most and genuinely made me look forward to hosting in the future are some of the reflections that come kind of tangentially to that. Our trusted contributor, Robert Bound, wrote some beautiful descriptions of tablescapes, for example. And in one of his descriptions, he talks about lunch, he talks about long lunches, and then he talks about dinner. And there's something to even just the metaphorical description of what that moment really holds in our minds, this idea that you are kind of surrounded by all the people that you love, and then there is this sort of like conspiratorial glow to the evening, and all of it is dinner. It's not just the food on the plates, but it's the environment, it's this moment suspended in time, that's dinner. Those type of reflections, I think, are what are going to make people who pick up the book feel most inspired, actually, about throwing a soiree. It's not about having the precise instructions of what to cook and what to put on the table, but it's more about, hey, isn't it a good thing to do? Shouldn't you be wanting to put effort into doing this thing? It's not passé, actually. It's at the very heart of who we are, and it should remain that way without feeling too conceited or too try hard. But it's nice to put effort into things and to show the people that you love that you do love them through this.
I think we had a lot of discussions when we were commissioning, certainly the essays, about the kind of perversity of how things need to feel effortless, but they actually are very sort of, you know, demanding. You know, this idea that in the modern world we photograph food all the time and we are constantly thinking about, in a way, perfection, when actually what we're doing is gathering people together, and it's all about that alchemy and that imperfection. And I think the book is trying to really unpack some of that, but also just be a useful guide to bolster people's maybe confidence, but also sense of self, sense of intention. Why are we hosting? Why do we make all this effort and bring people together? Because it does have this incredible humanity to it. It is about care for others, as you say. It's about this magical moment that you can just seize and you remember, and it marks something like a party. And we have this great essay about garden parties, marking change and this sort of interesting balance between the perfection of it all and the glory of a June afternoon when the roses are in bloom, but actually the fact that that's all going to be swiftly swept away by autumn. There's a sort of wonderful sort of pathos to it all, and I think the book tries to go there. It isn't at all sort of mournful, but it does look at sort of human behaviour around hosting and in literature and in history. So it's really trying to kind of explore the narratives and dig a little deeper, and we had a lot of fun doing that, didn't we?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's very serious in some respects because it is about human behavior, but it's also very funny. There are a few genuinely amusing essays in there that when we were reading back just before sending to print, we had a real laugh over. Fleur MacDonald is excellent in her essay about how to leave a party, which is a great, great source of distress for many people who just simply don't seem to be able to ever find the right moment or the right way of going about things. One about how to guest and how to pre-game dinner if you know that you're going to go to somebody's house who isn't quite the most generous cook. So there's plenty in there that's also lighthearted because, after all, it is parties and they are occasions of joy and silliness sometimes, and that's to be celebrated too.
Totally. And I think the humour and also the quirkiness of some of the, great hosts in history. We're looking at kind of Lee Miller, looking at Leonora Carrington, who used to snip the essay by Stella Roos references her snipping her guests' hair while they were sleeping and then actually serving them an omelette in the morning with their hair sort of in it as a sort of artistic statement of, the host and kind of some sort of conceptual. It just sounds remarkably awful in a sense, but it's so interesting that sometimes, life morphs into hosting and back the other way. And I think these moments are not written about all that much. And actually, quite a few significant things have happened over dinner. Huge treaties have been signed and deals have been done. And I think breaking bread is where we make a lot of progress in the world and where we make a lot of decisions. And it's a wonderful forum. And I think we're really trying to kind of remind people of that and remind people to do it and just follow their instincts and invite people over and be just that wonderful light-footed host that is springing about, being themselves and making other people feel, like they want to be in that moment and that they'll remember it forever.
That was Sophie Grove and Chiara Romella talking about The Guide to Generous Hosting, which will hit bookshelves later this summer. Finally, on today's show, the death was announced today of the colossally influential British artist David Hockney. He is Rob Bound again with Monocle Radio's obituary.
Everyone loved David Hockney. The directors of institutions loved his bright genius and ticket-selling popularity. Curators who'd given their life to the study of the mark-making of Renaissance greats and saw in the confident hand of Hockney something of Leonardo. Sunday painters selling their works on the Hyde Park railings, and the global millions who'd buy a postcard of Mr. and Mrs. Clark and Percy from the Tate Britain gift shop, having smiled beneath the real thing a few minutes beforehand. Fellow artists? Well, you're doing something right if Bacon and Freud are made haughtier still by your sunny success. Almost everyone loved David Hockney. People love Hockney's colour, exuberance, accessibility, portraiture, landscapes, mastery of styles, modernity, public persona, wardrobe, ordinariness, extraordinariness, and naughtiness. Hockney was never not doing two things, smoking and painting. The smoking bit's a bit boring. He loved a gasper, and it's satisfying for libertarians everywhere that he lived to just a month shy of his 89th birthday, lighting up many a day. But it's his better daily practice of sketching and painting, of making lines and shade on paper or indeed on screen, that were his job, his greatness and his glory. It could have been very different for any of the great post-war artists, but for Hockney, growing up in a working-class, non-artistic household in the north of England, it was more likely he'd work in a factory or a shop. As an 8-year-old in his hometown of Bradford, Hockney recollected his father renovating old bikes and in lending a hand, loving a thick brush full of paint coating something. But the young Hockney presumed paintings and illustrations were done in the evenings when the artist had finished painting the signs or the Christmas cards. Perhaps seeing painting as a job rather than an aesthetic endeavour reliant on the excruciating pursuit of a perfect muse is what got Hockney used to the habit of art and, ironically, to becoming such a freewheeling creative spirit. At the Royal College of Art, Hockney experimented with abstract expressionist paintings on which he wrote lines from the Earl's Court public loos in The Third Love Painting, 1960, and offered glimpses of confessions in We Two Boys Clinging and Doll Boy, both 1961. Hockney's coming out as gay was made easier by moving to Southern California in 1964, where he painted abstracted landscapes and figurative poolscapes, the bright milieu of people, parties and private views to which he now half belonged. Beverly Hills Housewife, 1966, and A Bigger Splash, 67, are icons of sun-drenched psychological detachment. Los Angeles Hockney bleached his hair shocking blonde, embraced colourful suits and stripes and glasses, and was a spectacle himself, the apotheosis of the contemporary artist in the popular imagination. And stinking rich, too. Then he spoke and was English and northern, charming and funny and fey. Hockney's 1970s and 1980s were full of painting and photography and fascination with art history and perspective, but perhaps most enjoyably for the artist, he immersed himself in designs for theatre and the opera. Stravinsky's Rake's Progress at Glyndebourne and Puccini's Turandot for the LA Opera were creative landmarks. Not scared of that large scale, Hockney began making huge canvases, landscapes made of panels that could absorb gargantuan subjects. A closer Grand Canyon, 1998, tallied with his vast photo collages of the same from the 1980s. These set the scene for his return to Yorkshire in the early 2000s, where he embraced the landscape and seasons in canvases great enough to cover the walls of his alma mater, the Royal Academy, and small enough to almost be the postcard millions would later take home. While a personal tragedy unsettled the artist, his tirelessness returned, painting latterly in Normandy, freshly excited by landscape, art, history, colour, and doing something useful and beautiful every day. Hockney contained multitudes, but could see out clearly and painted beautifully because of his 7 decades of career-long study and practice, not in spite of it. Hockney was a sexy, sun-kissed buccaneer, a glamorous success, an éminence grise, and a Yorkshireman in a cloth cap in the reign of the Dales. David Hockney did contain multitudes. For many years, David Hockney was the world's greatest living painter, and his works, his unmistakable style, live forever behind the eyes. For Monocle, I'm Robert Bound.
Thank you, Rob. And that is all for this edition of the Monocle Daily. Thanks to Susanna Streeter and to my slew of in-house guests. Today's show was produced by Anita Riota and researched by Josefina Astrid-Nagler-Gomez. Our sound engineer was Steph Chungu, with editing assistance by David Stevens and Lily Austin. I'm Andrew Muller here in London. The Daily is back at the same time on Monday. Thanks for listening.